We are back once again with Erika Brown, the publisher and editor of The Cricket, coming at us from her Manchester by the Sea office. How are you, Erika?
Hey Kory, how you
Good to
feeling?
I've been better. Been better. Like I have a shine. I have the shine on my forehead. Show you my. I think my fever broke. But yeah, we're
I'm,
fighting it over here.
I'm rubbing your head.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, there is a lot going on in Manchester, right? We were supposed to speak with Representative Belsito this week, but
Yeah,
presto changeo, there's been a change in redistricting here.
that's exactly right. I mean, and that's not necessarily new, but it's new to most people because we've been so used to the way it was for so long, like forever. We used to be in, and we're talking about the state, the representative, who represents us. So not in the Senate, but in the House, in Boston. And it used to be for a long time Brad Hill. Most people thought of Brad Hill, Brad Hill, Brad Hill. And because he was everywhere, it seemed, and he also was the minority leader in the House. So anyway, he got moved to the Gaming Commission a couple of years ago, and Jamie Belsito has been representing the fourth district, which is out of Ipswich. Well, she's out of Topsfield, but it's kind of a weird, district
Yeah.
anyway. And Manchester was always kind of an outlier because it was, sort of Topsfield, Ipswich. I mean, like Georgetown, Rowley, Ipswich, and then Wenham, Hamilton, and then Manchester. So I think I got that right, but it was kind of like that. Now we're part of the fifth district, which is the rest of includes the rest of Cape Ann. So it's currently served by Anne Margaret Ferrante,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a race, and most people in Manchester, at least, probably do not know that there's new candidates now, and there's 3 candidates running. So we decided to do a piece on the fact that we are redistricted and what does the new district look like, what's the new map look like, and then also we took the chance to say, listen, we're in the election season technically. The primaries are on September the 6th, and then you have the general election in November, and there are going to be some new kind of races, sort of new people and candidates for us because of redistricting. There's 3 candidates running, 2 on the Democratic side and then 1 on the Republican side. So we wanted to sort of shine a light on that. And then we also just did a list on who, preview of who's going to be on the ballot in general, with particular interest in Essex County, because of course we all care about Essex County.
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some weird things. Like I noticed the Governor's Council, which we have to vote for, the incumbent actually is from Gloucester. So that's kind of interesting. There's some local people. The DA, Essex County DA, the candidate is local, Salem. And then also Lieutenant Governor is kind of interesting. Kim Driscoll is running, and she's Mayor Salem. But
Right.
there are some other amazing. There are a lot of candidates there actually. It's kind of interesting. So we did a thing on redistricting, and then that'll trigger sort of some coverage that we're going to do. We've asked all 3 candidates for the representative race to write something, because that's kind of what the Cricket does. We'll either do maybe a forum, but really we invite people to write an introduction to readers directly.
Well, like a candidate statement. I gotcha.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that we can run that in a couple of weeks, like maybe the 24th, because it's a new district for us and we really do need to meet everybody as soon as possible. So we're not going to wait for the general election. We'll just ask everyone to do it now.
Gotcha. And a 1623 is going to provide any coverage on forums or debates in the next few weeks. We will keep you posted on that for sure. Okay, thanks, Erika. Also, the Boston Post cane is about to be awarded again.
Yeah, it's Boston Post cane. I was unfamiliar with this tradition until several years ago. It's been going on for, I think, the early 1900s, and it was the Boston Post newspaper publisher gave every municipality in the Commonwealth these beautiful mahogany canes with a furled, I think it's called, furled gold, 14 karat gold knob head. It's a very fancy sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the purpose was to give it to the oldest male living in your town. And that was sort of the tradition. And over the years, a lot of things that have happened with the Boston Post cane, because there was never any sort of official directions on who would own it, who would manage it, who would give it away, and more importantly, who would return it from the recipient when the recipient surrendered their their place as the oldest resident in town. So because of that, there's been some interesting sort of things that have happened with the Boston Post cane across the state. So in many cases, families didn't understand what this cane meant when their loved one died, and many people were buried with the canes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that had a lot of leakage in the cane population.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, and then also it just got lost and things like that. And then the other big change that happened was that women were allowed, some towns just voluntarily, and a lot of them decided, Essex, for instance, is an example of this, where they give away their Boston Post cane, and they still have it, to the oldest resident, male or female. And several recipients in the last several years have been women. So that's been going on. In Manchester, the Boston Post cane has been sort of managed quite ably by the Elder Brethren, which is a fraternal organization. And since the 1920s, they've been giving it away every year to the oldest male resident. Well, that kind of changed last year when the Elder Brethren themselves said, this doesn't feel right to us. So they gave the cane to the town of Manchester, and then they got their own cane. So two things are going to happen now. This is the first year we're going to do this way. Last week, the select board opened up the nominations for their cane, the proper Boston cane, which is actually being held now at the Manchester Historical Museum. And they'll be presented. So they're looking for people, and you have to be a resident. You have to, for a certain amount of time. There's certain, qualifications, but they're hoping for nominations. I know of a couple of key people who would be good candidates. But we'll see over the next couple of weeks who gets it. In the meantime, the Elder Brethren are going to go ahead with their tradition. It's going to continue sort of uninterrupted. It's just with a brand new cane, and they're going to give that out at their annual picnic is called I think unofficially, the Old Man's Chowder Picnic.
Yeah.
The Old Man's Picnic. I love that. So they're going to do it at Tux Point early next month, and they're going to give away their cane. So that's it. That's what's going on with the Boston Post cane.
So, Erika, is it possible for the same Manchester resident to have both the Elder Brethren cane and the Boston Post cane?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, Gordon MacDougal turned 99. He's a Manchester resident, and he's a character still. I think he still drives, and he's 99.
Good
So
for
he
him.
turned 99 in April, and so he is going to get the Elder Brethren cane. And then and if he were the oldest resident in Manchester, he'd get the same one. He'd get the Boston Post cane as well. But I think it may be a woman. I don't know. I believe I know of a woman who might be getting it, but I could be wrong, and we'll wait for the final kind of assessment.
Yeah, I'd be twirling that like a baton. That was a recipient. Yeah, awesome stuff. Okay, there's another great story here as well too. A Manchester resident swims the English Channel.
I know, this is like fantastic. I love this story. Martha Wood, who is a Manchester resident, last week successfully swam 21 miles across the English Channel. Now, the English Channel swims have been around for a while, and we heard about them every once in a while, kind of growing up, you'd hear about it. They've been swimming the English Channel since 1878, I believe it is. And that's been a thing. The first person did it. And the usual route, there's definitely different routes you can go, but the typical one is the 21-mile one that she went on. But she was successful, and she did this, and she did it in 12 hours and 25 minutes, which is, on average, since they've been counting it, an hour faster than average, which I think is extraordinary, considering it's got swimmers of all abilities, both genders. I mean, she is a true endurance performance swimmer. I mean, she really is, and she enjoys this. She's part of a cold, like a Frostbiters type swim club in Boston. She has done other races that are similar to this, one in New York recently. I mean, she does this, and that's why she's good at it. Just a couple things I will tell you this. And by the way, why did I tell you this? When she finished her quote, somebody said, "How do you feel?" And she said, "Pure bliss," which you can imagine she's like pumping with endorphins, and this is an incredible accomplishment. It's a lifetime accomplishment. So pure bliss. I've got you there. I'm with you. But then she followed it up with undertones of barfiness. That makes me love her.
Yeah.
Pure bliss with an undertone of barfiness.
Yeah.
She should be a sommelier, don't you think?
Yeah. That sounds apt. Yeah. 12 plus hours. That's a lot of seawater.
She's good with descriptives, absolutely. So she had a team that actually went along with her with a boat because that's how they do it.
Mm,
And the team is allowed to give her liquids every 45 minutes because 12 hours in the water, that's incredible.
yeah.
But she's not allowed to touch the boat. That disqualifies you from consideration. So just so you know, that I looked this up for context to say, well, how common is it to swim the English Channel? First of all, I did not appreciate the English Channel is one of the busiest shipping channels in the world, I
Mm,
believe, certainly in Europe. So it's not like you're out there all by yourself, it's also incredible tides, which you can imagine. It's the English Channel between England and France. So it's like got these incredible tides. It's very cold, which is why August is sort of the common month. Nearly all of the crossings happen then.
mm.
And then the last thing I'm going to say is that there has been, since the 1800s, there have been 4,133 swims. Now, there have been some swimmers who've done it more than once, so it's fewer swimmers, which is more interesting, actually. It puts her in a smaller club. But out of those 4,100 swims, I never even thought of it this way, but half of them are solo swims, just like Martha did. So she's really in a club of people who have done 2,400 basically solo swims by themselves for
Yeah.
12, 13 hours, right? But the other ones are done by relay, which puts us in the club. Like I could do
Yeah.
that. I'll
Yeah.
take the first 10 feet.
Yeah. And I'll take the last 10.
I'll be holding the beer. I'm gonna go out to the
Yeah.
beer for the person, and then I'm gonna swim in and say, one.
You can push Martha off, right? Does that count?
That's right. I'll say, let's do a relay, Martha. I'll do the first 20 feet, then you can
Yeah.
take. So listen, it just shows me that's an incredible accomplishment of
What an achievement, huh?
performance. It's a great achievement. So our hats off to her. And by the way, I know I said the last thing was going to be the last thing. If you look at the map of how she did it, she actually, there's this big curve, she went out of her way. It's like she stopped by the store in the middle of the thing and then
Yeah, really.
went back. And I'm sure that's because of the tides and because of the currents. I'm sure that it's the winds and the currents you have to fight against them. I bet that's what it is. But who knows? That means she probably could have done it faster.
I've had this conversation with someone last week where even on shipping routes, if you're going from, say, Boston to London or whatever, right? You ship 65% of your route, you're off course because of the tides the whole time anyway. You just kind of waver back and forth. So it's pretty cool that they actually tracked her track.
Yeah, with a GPS device. So you could see her exact route that she took, not by design, but by circumstance. Like that, that's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It looks like a kind of a bell-shaped curve on its side, sort of.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Very impressive.
Congratulations to Martha Wood.
Absolutely. Erika, that was a great week of stories. Thanks so much. We'll see you this time next week.
Feel better.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.